are watching the Goldratt satellite program broadcast live from Castle Engelenburg in the Netherlands. Today is the second of our 8 sessions on the theory of constraints, finance and measurements. Here's Dr. Ellie Goldratt.
Good evening. And to our friends in the Americas, good morning. Finance and measurements. Finance is the function in our organization that take care of the money. They are the one who are responsible for all the payables. They are the one who pays. They are responsible for the receivables. They are the one who invoice and supposed to collect as well. They are also the one in charge of all our relationship with the banks. But I'm not going to talk about that aspect of the work of the finance. What I'm going to concentrate in this session is on the link between finance and measurements. Finance are the scorekeepers. They are responsible of judging the actions and the decisions that we do in the organization. And if you look in it, you'll find out that actually the areas that we are looking for judgment and help from finance to judge, to measure, are 5 different areas. One of them is judgment of a system as a whole. That's why finance is the one that does the profit and loss statement, the P&L statement, and the balance sheet. This is a judgment of the system as a whole. Another thing is not just judging backwards in time, like the P&L is always done on the last quarter or the last year, but forward in time. And I'm talking about judging investments. When you are filling an appropriation request for a new machine, you have to justify it. And this usually goes through finance. It's not that they are making the final decision, but they are the one who said whether or not the numbers that you put are realistic. Then there is a total different judgment, more on day-to-day, which is make-buy decisions. What things should we do at home? What things should we rather buy from the outside? And then in many large companies, it's not just the system as a whole that has to be judged, but subsystems, profit centers. They are the one who have to provide the judgment of the performance of a profit center. And last but not least, probably the one that is attracting most of the attention, the one that we take almost for granted, is the judgment of a product or judgment of a service. Do we make money on this product? And if so, how much? So we'll know whether or not we want to push this product or maybe to refrain from doing it. All this program is about improving the performance of our organization. And the question starts to be, do we have anything to improve regarding the judgment of all these 5 areas? To my amazement, when I'm coming and asking organizations, managers in organizations, do we have room for improvement here? They all say yes. But what are they complaining about? They complain about the fact that the judgment is not timely enough. For example, we have to wait 3 weeks after the end of the quarter in order to get the quarterly statements. Bad. If you talk with the financial people, they will tell you, yes, we have problems because it takes too much money or too much effort in order to assemble all this data, or the data is not accurate, and yes, they do agree that they have to improve in order to make it more timely. I think that the problem is by far bigger. And it's not just me who thinks like that. I believe that most professionals in accounting, in finance, believe that the problem is much, much bigger. They tend to joke about it, but they mean it seriously. For example, when you are asking an accountant how much is 2 plus 2, what is the answer of a good accountant? What do you want it to be? Now, this is a joke. This is a joke that reflects reality. Because many financial people will tell you, don't rely on our numbers in order to make decisions. Many financial people will tell you, somehow, in the ways that we are doing the judgment, what we are doing is relatively arbitrary. It's not just the problem that the data is not accurate. It's not just the problem that it's not timely. Something at the heart of it is probably not solid enough. Managers outside finance are unaware to what extent we do have a problem in the judgment in all the 5 areas. And in order to show you how devastating it can be, let me tell you a true story. The facts about the story I got from the newspapers, and some more juicy facts I've got from the CEO of that company that I'm going to tell you about, the CEO that inherited the mess that I'm going to tell you about. The company is not small. It's was one of the large companies in the United States. Annual sales close to $10 billion a year. This is not small by any means. And in 1981, or was it 82, first time, for a long, long time, first time that this company have made a loss. They've lost money, not much. But it came as a surprise. Nobody expected it, especially on the background of about over 25 years of making profit every quarter. The board of directors reacted immediately. They've retired the CEO and hired a new, very able person, a tough cookie, somebody who was known to say, a business is not a popularity contest. This guy was very, very capable. And when he came, his first action was, give me a list of all parts that we are doing in our company. Now, this is a mammoth list because they were doing well over 50,000 different parts. One of the largest companies in providing heavy equipment for agriculture. Now, you can imagine how many parts goes into one tractor, so you can imagine how many parts these companies were doing. He wanted a full list of all the parts. Okay? The computer printout was like that. And for each part, he wanted to know, first of all, can we buy it from the outside? Not everything that they are producing, there is a capability of buying it from the outside. So first of all, can we buy it from the outside? And if we can, give me 2 numbers. One is how much it costs us to produce in-house, and for how much can we buy it from the outside? And then he looked on this list and said, no wonder that we are losing money. Look on how many parts we are doing at home where actually it's cheaper to buy from the outside. So he gave a mandate. Everything that we can buy cheaper from the outside, outsource. And internally, trim. It's not a popularity contest. Now, this was done even though many companies are doing it, and even though this is common procedures. In that case, it was done on a mammoth scale and rigorously. As a matter of fact, some divisional managers have tried to protect their kingdom and tried to use some delaying tactics. He was moving so quickly, and he made few of them into examples, so nobody dared to slow down. And then, as like every good CEO should do, you have to follow up. You have to do course corrections. So you have asked 2 months later, give me now the list again. This time recalculate, because situation have changed. So recalculate how much it costs us now, and because the markets have changed, recalculate how much can we buy it now from the outside. And what did he found out? Well, it shouldn't come to as any surprise to anybody who understands something about organizations. Look, when you buy from the outside instead of producing at home, and you trim at home, yes, you can lay off in some countries people. You can fire them. Can you fire a machine? Can you fire a building? Not with a match, that is. Which means, when he trimmed inside, did he save all the cost that was supposed to be the cost of the parts? He saved just what? Just a direct labor, a little bit more than that, a little bit less than that, depends on how he worked. The vast majority of the cost is not direct labor. Which means what he bought from the outside was more expensive than the trimming inside. No wonder that the results on the bottom line didn't look too good, but something more than that. Now, fewer parts made inside have to share the burden that they've shared before, that with all the parts that were now outsourced. Which means what happened when they've done the recalculation? Many more parts that they are doing inside become more expensive. Trim again on a huge scale. Of course, the bottom line went down, down. This person said, wait a minute, I'm doing everything correctly. I'm doing what everybody believes in, and still something goes wrong. So he decided, let's take some more aggressive actions. He said, where is our biggest investments? Well, that wasn't a big deal to find out in that company. The biggest investments were, of course, the assembly plants. Do you know how much cost one assembly plant for tractors and this type of equipment? Each one of these baby cost more than $1 billion. I'm talking about just investment. I'm not talking about the operating cost. And he said, okay, now tell me what is the efficiencies of these assembly plants. And I told him, this one is 96% and this one is bad, it's only 93%. And then he said, what the hell are you talking? He said, your numbers are based on what? A calculation of 2 shifts a day, 5 days a week. These investments are there 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Do the calculation now based on the real time frame, on the base of 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Now, of course, if you do the calculation based on that, what do you get? You get that the efficiencies are less than 50%. He said, no wonder that we're losing money. Our biggest assets are not utilized. So, activate the assembly plants full blast. He said, wait a minute, where are we going to take the orders? He said, what's the problem? Forward some orders. Start to produce a little bit to forecast. Totally acceptable practice all over the world. When they told him, well, we have to produce more parts and buy more parts, he said, fine, do it. And said, we have a little bit of cash problems. He said, that's fine, I will take care of it. And he was a very able person. He went and borrowed money from 206 banks in order for all the assembly plants, the whole company, to work 3 shifts, 7 days a week, for the entire last quarter of the year. And they succeed to reach efficiencies that were never in the history of the company. Unbelievable. Of course, they had to park the vehicles and the instruments all over Canada and the United States. But they were unbelievably efficient. And their biggest investments were utilized like they were never utilized before. At the end of the year comes the judgment of the system as a whole, the P&L and the balance sheet. And what do you think was the result? The result was you have made a beautiful profit. This person got a bonus, of course. And then he said to himself, what do I do now? I cannot continue like that. And besides, what am I going to do with all the products that are now parked everywhere? And he admits, I don't know what to do. And he took the responsibility and said, fine, I'll resign. And he resigned. Nice story, except for the fact that the year after that, the company had to fire 30,000 people. The situation was so bad that they had to dump all these products in prices that the farmer thought it's wonderful. Okay. The situation was so bad that not only that they had to fire so many people, they had to change their name. But this story continues on. You see, when they started to dump this equipment for a song, farmers, even though they didn't need actually new equipment, but here's a chance. So they went and buy it. Now, does the farmers have a lot of cash? No, so they went to the banks to borrow money to buy this new equipment. And a year later, for 2 years, was a drought. Many, many farmers have lost their farms due to it. Here's one person doing exactly according to what we're talking about, according to the conventional judgment, everything perfect. And look what damage he brought everywhere. By the way, there was no maliciousness here. There was no ill intentions. Everything was done with good intentions. Let's go one by one and understand what are the real problems in these judgments that can cause such a catastrophe. How can it be that these judgments are so distorted that they can bring a company which is almost $10 billion in sales, can bring such a company in 1 year to its knees? That's the magnitude of the problem. Judging the system as a whole, I will go now one by one. If you noticed, you were probably asking yourself, wait a minute, this person was doing wrong, he is really utilizing the assembly plants to the full blast, but where the product going? Not to the market, not to sales, but to the warehouses. Not warehouses, it's parking lots, call it. Okay? But nevertheless, the P&L, the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet have showed by the end of the year that it was doing great, that the company have done profit. How can it be that somebody is taking such an action, which intuitively it's obvious to all of us that it's wrong, nevertheless, the judgment after he took the action, at least for the short time, the judgment of the system as a whole saying, you have done great, you have done profit. How can it be? Well, if you talk with financial people, they will tell you, by the mere fact that this person, have utilized assembly plants to 1%, he absorbed more cost. Now, if you are not a real cost account, so on, you say, what? Yeah, I heard this phrase, but what does it mean? Well, if we dig a little bit deeper, we'll understand what is the problem. You see, we all today know that inventory, finished goods inventory, if you don't need it now, it's a huge liability. Just in time have proved to us to what extent inventory is a liability. Everybody in industry knows that inventory is a liability. Not everybody. There is one entity that doesn't know it. And this one entity is called the judgment of the system as a whole. In your balance sheet, today, on your balance sheet, under which heading do you have inventory? Under which heading inventory is in your own balance sheet? Under asset. Now decide, inventory, is it a liability or an asset? Because it cannot be opposite things at the same time. And you see what's happening? If you increase the inventory, as long as the inventory is not obsolete, and in his case definitely it wasn't obsolete, the inventory is registered as an asset. But in what value does it register as an asset? In the value of the materials that went into it, plus all the added value of turning this raw material into the finished products. All of it is part of the asset. And if you look, for example, on your P&L, in your P&L there is something called cost of goods sold. And under cost of goods sold, there is the difference between the opening inventory of the period and the ending inventory of the period. And if the ending inventory is more valuable than the opening, you get an impact on the profit and loss statement as if you've made profit. This is called artificial inventory profits. And this can lead people totally astray, like in that case. It can distort everything. As a matter of fact, if you look on the opposite of what happens when you reduce inventory, you see to what extent we are shooting ourselves in the foot. In the last 10 years, all over the world, corporations have instructed their units, reduce inventory. Reduce inventory! Suppose that you're working for such a company, and corporate have told you, mandate you, reduce inventory. And you reduce the inventory. You've done a beautiful job. Within 3 months, you've reduced finished goods and work in process inventory to 1/2, without jeopardizing customer service. As a matter of fact, with improving customer service. Now you expect a reward. You expect that you are a hero. But then at the end of the quarter, they do the P&L. And what comes out? You've not made the loss. We fire you. Do you think that I'm joking? No. Do you know how many people have suffered from it? Now, okay, reduce inventory. Fine, slowly. It's craziness. See, there is one huge problem in the ways that we do today, the P&L and the balance sheet. And the problem is the fact that we allocate cost to inventory. This by itself creates such a distortion that it is delaying, sometimes blocking correct actions that are mandatory, and at the other hand, rewarding companies from doing stupid things, sometimes to the extent that they can break the company. That's about the system as a whole. In my eyes, this is the one that contains the minimum distortion compared to the others. But remember where the distortion is coming again. In one item, allocating cost to the value of inventory. That's where the problem is. If we look on the next item on our list, which was investment in equipment, we can see even a bigger distortion. For example, ask yourself the following thing. Suppose that right now in one department to do this type of parts takes 10 minutes. The engineers have found a beautiful new machine in one of the exhibitions. They love to buy this new technology. And you know what? With this new machine, only $1 million, big deal. With this new machine, we can do the same parts, not in 10 minutes, but in 5 minutes. What other information do you need in order to be able to justify buying this piece of equipment? $1 million. Well, just think about it and you'll see, well, how many parts like this we do, what is the cost per hour, are we allowed to allocate all costs, not just of the department of the plant, but also of corporate? These type of questions. And then to see how much cost savings we are doing by multiplying this value of 5 minutes with the allocation of cost, multiplying the parts. And if we see that the cost saving will be more than, let's say, $500,000 a year, which means the payback period will be less than 2 years, we can submit it and most probably that will be approved. It will be approved. This is what's done everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world, almost in every company. But now let me ask you, does it make any sense? Let's ask ourselves. Suppose that that machine that is we have now that produces 10 minutes per part is a non-bottleneck. And we bought a new machine that is faster, twice as fast. How much more are we going to sell due to that? Nothing. How many people are we going to fire due to that? And everywhere in the world, what do we say? We are bringing new technology. No one is going to get hurt from new technology, which means directly from buying this new machine, nobody is going to be fired. Oh, we may move people from one department to another. Have you noticed, by the way, that when you move people from one department to another, costs do not go down? How much time it takes us to recover the investment? Never. As a matter of fact, under the current convention, if we will buy this new machine, we have more capacity, we'll make it work. Which means what will happen to the inventory? How nice. Doesn't make any sense. Oh, sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes, and this happened during all the 80s, there was a phenomenon that was unbelievable at the beginning of the 80s, which is, everywhere that I went, I found out, in specific industries, I found out that the CNC machines, you know, these 5-axis beautiful machines that were there, then the top of the technology, these new machines are the bottlenecks everywhere. And I asked myself, wait a minute, how can it be? The same parts we produced before that with conventional machines. Now we bought even more capacity, a CNC. Now we have much more capacity. How comes it's all of a sudden a bottleneck? And what was the answer? Since this new machine is able to do it at 5 minutes rather than 10 minutes, we cannot now afford to use the machines of the 10 minutes. They are not cost effective. So we stopped to use them. But the capacity of the new machine is not enough to compensate for all that capacity that we had before. Now we have a bottleneck. So not only that the cost was not recovered, throughput went down. By the way, at the end of the 80s, this phenomenon disappeared. Simply, we bought so many of those machines, we have even capacity from that. Investment in equipment. It's unbelievable. Remember, most of our resources are non-bottlenecks, which means all the justification is wrong there. What about justification on the bottleneck? Suppose that it takes 10 minutes, and now with this new machine, it will take 9 minutes. We are putting so many parts and so on. The justification comes out to be 5 years payback, don't buy. But if it's a bottleneck, what's the meaning of 10% of the bottleneck capacity? You can have the whole company. My God, we should have bought it. Put yourself in the shoes of a foreman or a worker that sometimes he needs a tool for $500 because it is blocking the bottleneck and he cannot justify it. Or sometimes you see all this new piece of equipment that who the needs it? Do you think that there is big trust of these workers and these foremen to management? No, because they intuitively understand this one didn't help. 90% of the investment certification today, more than 90%, are based on nothing, which means your chance of making the right investment is like the chance of flipping a coin. It's totally arbitrary what we are using today. Let's go to the next one. Make-buy decision. Do I have to elaborate on that? We've just seen what happened to that company because of the conventional decisions of make-buy, of calculating the cost, what it cost us home, comparing to the buy outside, assuming that if we'll subcontract, if we'll offload, all these costs that we calculate will be trimmed, which never is the case. Which means all this make-buy calculation is based on false assumptions. More than that, today we know that lead time is of utmost importance. How fast do we react to the market? Have you noticed that many times when you are using a subcontractor, the lead time goes up? What is the impact now? You may lose your whole market. This type of considerations we don't take into account at all. Look what we are doing to ourselves. The one that takes a score are doing it according to something arbitrary. Look again, up to now, what was the big problems? In the first one in the system, it was because we were allocating cost to the inventory. In the second one, the investment was because we're allocating cost to the machine. 10 minutes rather than 5 minutes, allocate the cost in order to be able to judge. What about make-buy? We are allocating the cost to the part. That's what makes the distortion. Because then we are under the impression that if we will subcontract the part, all the cost goes, which is not the case. Next one. The next issue is profit centers. Here we have quite a bit of a problem. What is, first of all, profit center? Profit center means we are dealing here with a subsystem. The definition of subsystem, it's a part of the system that either buys some of its raw materials, not from the outside world, but from inside the company, from another subsystem, or sells some of its product, not to the outside world, but to another part of the company. That's a profit center. Otherwise, it's a company. Is it understood? People in charge of profit centers want to know whether or not they are contributing to the company. What is their contribution? And when we are talking about profit center, it means we are doing profit and loss statement for them separately. What is, of course, immediately the problem? The problem is not in calculating how much is the total expenses. The problem is to calculate how much was their sales, especially if part of their sales is internal. How do we calculate it today in almost all companies? What is the value of the sale? We calculate according to the cost of what you've sold. And how do we calculate the cost? By allocating the cost to the products. Now, what is happening? Look what is happening. I'm in charge of one profit center. You're in charge of another one. You're buying for me. I'm selling to you. If we'll decide that what I'm selling to you is high price, I will be very profitable. You'll be bankrupt. Excellent for me because I will be the next one to get the position up. But if we'll decide the opposite way, you'll be very profitable, I'll be bankrupt. You will win. The fights on what is the transfer price is mammoth. As a matter of fact, look what's happening. If I become inefficient, what happened to the transfer price? I'll repeat again. If I become inefficient in my subsystem, what happens to the transfer price of my products? Goes up. How lovely. I've analyzed many, many large companies. I found out several large companies where the core problem of the whole company is transfer prices. It brings that company to its knees. All the attention of top management is how do we get better transfer prices? That's what guides him all the time. It's amazing to what extent. Huge problem. But let's look on the last one, the one that we take almost for granted that we must do cost calculation, which is judging a product or a service. Do we make money on that product or this? Flip, please. Do we make money on the product or the service? So we have to calculate how much it costs us, how much we're getting from the market, and what are the margins. And based on that, we'll make decisions of which product is more profitable. That's the ones that we have to push more into the market. If the one product is, the margins are close to zero, trim it, erase it from the portfolio. Let me show you to what extent the whole notion of profit of products, and because of it, all the decisions based on it, to what extent it's totally arbitrary. Once again, we are using allocation, and once again, we are totally floundering. And in order to do it, bear with me, I will use more numbers. As a matter of fact, we cannot give a presentation about finance without using some numbers, right? It will not be fair. Now, when you're coming to deal with product, profit or service, and you ask, why don't we get more reliable base for decisions? You are hearing because the data is not always available, and when it's available, it's not always accurate, and when it's accurate and available, it's too late when we've got it. All of this. So you know what? Let me give you an example. No tricks whatsoever in this example. The only thing that this example does not resemble real life is I took all the excuses away. In other words, all the data is perfectly accurate, even though there isn't such accuracy in reality. I will simplify to take all the unknown out. I will give everything and I'll make it very, very simple. Just to show you that even when we get rid of all the excuses, the answers that we get from product cost are totally arbitrary. This is your plant. You are in charge of all of it. Let me describe to you your plant. I want to go step by step slowly so that you will see there are no tricks whatsoever. You are in charge in your plant. You are producing only 2 products. That's all. Now, how many different products do you produce in your real plant? Okay? Few hundreds, few thousand sometimes. This is so simple, relatively. Only 2 products. One we call P, the other one we call Q. The price I will give you also, and it will be totally deterministic. For example, the market buys from you product P for $90 for each unit, and product Q $100 per each unit. This is, of course, already unrealistic, because we know that this product on our catalog is $100 per unit, but you are a client that you want this and this, all of a sudden it's 95.6, and so on and so forth. Here the prices are fixed, perfect. Now I'll give you some things that in reality definitely does not exist at all. I will give you accurate forecast at the product level. Perfect, stable forecast. Okay? Every week, the market is willing to buy from you 100 units per each week from product P and 50 units per week from product Q. If you just deliver, they will buy it at that prices. Okay? Perfect. Now I will tell you also all the data that you need about how you produce it. For example, product P, you start with raw material that you buy from the vendor for $20 a unit. Then this raw material goes, first of all, into department A. How much time it spends in department A, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that the actual time that this part is worked on in department A is exactly 15 minutes per each unit. Perfect. In reality, it's never like that. I'm just taking away all excuses, that's all. Then, once it's finished there, it has to be further processed in department C, where it takes exactly 10 minutes. Then it's ready for assembly. Department D, this purple department, is assembly. It takes this part, the left-hand part, and it assembles it together with the middle part. Let me go on the middle part. Once again, it starts from raw material, $20 a unit. And this one starts its journey, first of all, in department B, where it takes 15 minutes to do 1 unit. Then the same department C, where it takes 5 minutes. Then in the purple department, in the D department, they take the left-hand part, they take the middle part, and they take a purchase part that you purchase for $5 a unit, they assemble it together. The assembly time per each unit is 15 minutes, and it's 1, 1, 1. This, once the assembly is finished, that's product P that you sell to the market. What about product Q? Basically the same. Very similar. You start with raw material 3 that you purchase for the same price, $20. Then it goes, first of all, through department A, the exact same department. But this part, when it's done in department A, takes 10 minutes. Do you have more than one part done in the same department? Of course. And it doesn't take always the same time. Okay? Then it goes through department B, the same department B that is doing this task. And then it's assembled with the same middle part, which means the middle part is a common part for 2 different products. Do you have common parts in your companies? Of course. The assembly time here is only 5 minutes, and there is no purchase parts needed. That's the whole story. To make sure that nobody is confused, let me try to describe the same thing in a different way. Look, in your plant, you have 4 departments, A, B, C, and D. If I'm looking on the left part starts to be by buying raw material, then it goes through department A, skips over department B, goes through department C, and reach the assembly department. That's the left part. What about the middle part? The middle part starts by buying material, goes to department B, the same department C enters the assembly department, where they take another purchase part, assemble all of them together. That's product P. Is it understood? What about product Q? The left side part is starting in the right side part starts in department A, goes through B, jumps over C, enters the assembly department, where they take this and the same middle part, no purchase part. This is product Q. Is it understood? If you noticed, we in MRP invented the first presentation, this tree presentation, simply because if I want to use this presentation, which is a flow through the plant, and I will put here 50 different products, what you will see is a spaghetti. Okay? That's why MRP, and this is one of the big inventions of MRP, is that if you want to look on massive amount of data in organization, you have to describe it in this way. Now let me give you some more information just to make things easier. Setup time. Remember, the same department has to work, each department has to work on more than one thing. They have to switch from one to the other. Setup time, 0. Do you love me now? Scrap, 0. Absenteeism of worker, 0. Perfect world, no excuses. And I will really make your life easy. I could have told you, for example, that in department A we have 6 workers on the first shift, but only 5 at the second shift, but they can work on the weekend provided that you'll pay 1 point. No, we'll do it simply. Each one of this department is manned by 1 single person only. And each person is working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and let's make the total unrealistic assumption, 60 minutes an hour, which means these workers do not take even pee breaks. Perfect world. Not so perfect, as a matter of fact. They are totally non-interchangeable. A cannot do the work of B, B cannot do the work of A. And you know that in your companies there are enough people which are non-interchangeable. This cannot do this work, and this simply don't have the capabilities. What else shall I tell you? The total operating expense of the company is $6,000 a week. What do I mean by total operating expense? The salary of these workers, the fringe benefits, the health insurance that you have to pay, the salary of the foreman, the salary of the salespeople, the salary of the accounting department, the interest that we pay to the bank. All of it is included in this $6,000. But what is not included is the money that you pay to the vendors. How much money you're going to pay to the vendors for raw materials? Well, it depends on how much you produce. What I did give you is the price that you have to pay to the vendor for each unit that you buy from the vendor. Is it understood? Yes or no? As a matter of fact, I gave you all the information that you need. You don't need more information. If you want more information, I can give it to you, but then you'll just go astray. All the information there, perfect, accurate, timely, whatever you want. What I need is just one thing. The goal of this company is to make money. My question is, how much maximum net profit this company can make? How do you decide on it? Look, you need to know which product is preferred. Why? Because this company, like half the companies in the world, have an internal bottleneck. Look on how quickly we can find it. Remember, in reality, how you find a bottleneck? You go and ask. Here we can ask just the wall, so we'll have to do some calculation. Thank God that the data is accurate here, not like in reality. Look on how do you do it. Look on the way it's constructed. If I'm looking at product P, these are the things that I have to do. How much time is needed from A to do one unit? 15 minutes. How much from B? 15 minutes. How much from C? 15 minutes. How much from D? 15 minutes. So the first product does not give preference. So that's not the one that creates a bottleneck. Let's look on the other product. If we're looking on Q, the same middle part plus this part is needed. How much time from A? 10 minutes. How much from B? 30 minutes. How much from C? 5 minutes. How much from D? 5 minutes. If there is a bottleneck, which one it will be? B. Correct? Now, if you do the calculation, you see immediately that B is a huge bottleneck. For example, if you want to sell all the 100 Ps of P, we need 1,500 minutes of B. If we want to sell all 50 units of Q, we need 30 minutes per each one of them. This is once again 1,500 minutes. In total, we need 3,000 minutes. How many minutes are available in a week? 8 hours a day times 5 days times 60 hours. It's only 2,400. We don't have the capacity to satisfy the full potential of the market, which means we'll have to make a decision. We'll have to make a decision which product do we prefer to push into the market. That's why we are doing all the calculation of product profit. Okay? Okay, now which one comes better? Let's do the calculation together. So far, is it understood? So far, is it understood? I hope so, okay? Fine. It's not so complicated. Look, now a few things that I have to look on. First of all is the totally variable cost, or in other words, how much do I have to pay to the outside for it? Raw materials. P. For each P, I have to pay how much in raw materials? $45. Don't forget the purchase part on the side. Do you remember it? Okay? $20 for the left part, $20 for the middle part, and $5 for the purchase part. $45. How much do I have to pay raw materials for product Q? Only 40. Which means if raw material would have been the only consideration, which is not, but if raw material would have been the only consideration, which product would you prefer? Without a doubt, Q. Fine. But that's not the only consideration. The other thing is, what about all the other costs? Okay? Usually, in 90% of the organizations today, be it industry or non-industry, we allocate the cost according to what? To the actual effort that goes directly into the product or the service. Or in other words, call it direct labor, call it whatever you want. The actual effort in. Whether or not you are using activities-based costing or not, it is still allocated based on the actual effort. If we look on the picture here, remember what it is. How much time goes into product P? 60 minutes. 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 50, 60 minutes. Fine. How much time goes into product Q? So, if the efforts or all the rest of the cost are the only consideration, which product do you prefer to sell? Q again, no doubt. Lovely. But there is also something called selling price. What is selling price of P? $90. What's the selling price of Q? $100. If selling price would have been the only consideration, which one do you prefer? Q again. Here, in this case, I was so nice, there is no problems. Our systems today, without any hesitation, if you are using activity-based costing or whatever you want to use, or whatever base system for allocation, would say without any hesitation, the preferred product is Q. Push Q as much as the market will bear. If you still have capacity, use P to fill up the gap. Am I right? Yes or no? Yes. Fine. So let's see now, what is the bottom line? Remember, what counts is the bottom line. So, let's turn the page and let's calculate what's the bottom line. Let's look at it. Sales from P. How many P's can we sell? 100. Yes, we can produce more. Excuse me. No, we are not going to start with P. We said, which one is preferred? Q. 50. Whatever the market bears, take all the 50. Each one of them, how much the market is paying us? $100. Do we still have capacity? Remember where we have to check if we have still capacity or not? Do we have to check in every work center? No, it's enough to check in the bottleneck. Okay. Bottleneck is department B. If we do 50 of Q, each one Q takes 30 minutes. 50 of Q means 1,500 minutes have gone. How many minutes are left? 900. These 900 minutes, let's do P. Since each unit of P takes us 15 minutes, how many P's can we produce? 900 divided by 15, this is 60 units. Yes, the market is willing to buy up to 100, but we don't have the capacity. So we will sell whatever we can, which is another 60 units of P. Correct? Each one of them gives me only $90. Now let's see how much sales we are getting here. 60 times 90 is, help, 5,400. 50 times 100 is another 500. Total sales is 10,400. You see, we are dealing with finance. That's the only time that you'll see me writing any numbers here. Now, this is total sales. We have to reduce from it the raw materials. How much is it? Let's see. Let's look on the calculation again. Okay, each one of 50 Qs is $40, plus each one of the 60 Ps is $45 in raw materials. Correct? How much is it in total? 2,000 plus, help, 4,000. How much is it? 4,700. But that's not the end of the thing. We still have operating expenses that we have to cover. How much is operating expense? 6,000. So what is the profit? Minus 300. What can we do? There is too much competition in the market. Maybe we should go to the government. And 300 minus, that's what we have. Okay. Now let me ask you something. Let's suppose that we ignore totally the cost calculations. Let's suppose that we are totally out of our minds. Q was definitely the most profitable product. We'll do the opposite. We will push P, the lousy product, as much as we can. If we still have capacity, we'll do Q. The opposite! We are crazy. Let's see what then will be our bottom line. And remember, the final judge is only the bottom line. Okay, let's do the opposite. So we'll sell all 100 of P. All 100 of P. Each one of them, we are getting from the market $90. This means $9,000 from P. How much time is left for Q? Let's see. If we sell 100 of P, on our bottleneck, and that's the one that dictates everything, 1,500 minutes have gone. How much are left for Q? 900 minutes. But remember, each unit of Q takes 30 minutes. 900 minutes are available, 30 minutes each unit, I can sell only 30 Qs. Yes, the market is willing to buy 50. Sorry, I don't have capacity. 30 Qs. Let's back to the calculation, okay? We are selling 30 Qs. Each one of them, the market is willing to pay $100. This means total 3,000. How much is now total sales? $12,000. Raw materials. Remember, raw materials I have to pay to my vendors. 100 Ps, each one of them $45, plus 30 Qs, each one of them only $40. How much money is this? $5,700. And let's not forget, the operating expense is $6,000. How much is now? 300 plus. How much was it before? 300 minus, plus, minus, who cares? Wait. What happened here? We've done the exact opposite of what we should do, and the impact is we still go to the bank, but not to lend, not to loan money, but to deposit money. Something is horribly wrong. Is there any trick in this example? No. The cost allocation have totally misled us. What do you mean totally misled us? Sometimes it leads even to the right answer. You don't know, it's arbitrary. Now, of course, how are we going to solve this problem of what is a correct product mix when we have thousands of products? To check all the combinations? To do linear programming? You're totally in the hands of the computer then. And remember, your data sucks. What are we going to do then? Look again. When we're talking about judgments, there are 5 subjects. Judgment of the system as a whole. Judgment of investment in capacity. Judgment of make-buy decisions. Judgments of profit centers. Judgment of the product and services. All of them, when you look on it, and you don't try to fool yourself, you see, the judgment is arbitrary. And all of them, when you track why, you come to the same point. To the point of the cost allocation have led us astray totally. Everybody is a fool. How comes that we are using cost allocation then? What forces us to use cost allocation? Remember, never assume that people are fool. Definitely not the financial people. They are far from being fool. What causes us to use cost allocation? Well, for that, we have to think a little bit harder. For that, we have to expose the real conflict between 2 different philosophies that we are using currently to run our organizations. Philosophies that we are trying to find a compromise between, but there isn't any. And in order to explain it, I will use an analogy. That's a trick that you always do in physics. Whenever you don't really have a handle of what's going on, use an analogy where your intuition is more developed. The analogy that I'm going to use for an organization is a chain, a physical chain. Why is this analogy almost obvious? Look in your organization. You have one department which is in charge of bringing things from the outside, purchasing. You have another department that are in charge of doing the actual work. You have another department that is in charge of packing it and shipping it to the clients. You have another department which is in charge of bringing the client. You have another department which is in charge of invoicing and collecting from the clients. Your organization is like a chain composed out of many, many links. Each one of them has its own function. Am I right? Do you see it? Do you see it? Good. Now, when you're looking on this chain, you find out that if I want to evaluate the chain, there is more than one way to evaluate the chain. When we are looking on our organization as a chain, still there is more than one way to evaluate it. That's not the problem. The problem is that we must evaluate it in more than one way. Why must we evaluate it in more than one way? Because if you want to manage well, you have to do 2 things. One is you must control the cost. You don't control the cost, and the cost will go out of hand. At the same time, you must protect throughput. You must protect the sales. Is it understood? Two different things. Let's go a little bit and define these things a little bit more clearly. When you're looking on the company as a whole, it's a black box. It's a box. One thing is, let's remember, any organization was built for a purpose. There is no organization that was built just for the heck of it. Fulfilling this purpose is what we call achieving throughput. For example, if you are a company that is traded in the stock exchange, you have made a commitment to your shareholders that the purpose of your company will be what? To make money. What do you think investments have put their money into your company? For the glory of God? Not in your company. They put their money into your company through the stock exchange in order to get more money. You have made a commitment. The goal of our company is to make more money. How do you make more money? By providing products and services to the market. Okay? The throughput is the money that you make from the outside world, the money that you have generated. Okay? Throughput is the rate at which the company or the organization generates gold units. If you are trading Wall Street, gold units is money. If you are high school, God forbid if it is money, the high school we put in place in order to generate what? Education. That's the gold units. Army, try to imagine that the goal of the army would have been to make more money. That's Attila the Hun, maybe. Okay? Our armies are in order to make more defense. Hospital, the goal is to increase health. Okay? How many health units have you created? That's what counts. Okay? Now remember, if we are going back to a company that is for profit rather than for purpose, you have sold the product for $100. How much money have you generated? Not $100, because it might be that in the products that you have sold, there are components and raw materials that you bought for your vendors for $30. This $30 is not money that your company have generated. It's money that your vendor company have generated, just flowing through your company. Which means throughput is how much money you have generated, what you get from the outside world, minus what you pay to the outside world. That's the throughput. Selling price minus raw material price, or customs, or commission to something outside the company. Is it understood? Yes or no? That's a throughput. Operating expense is all the money the company spends in order to turn the wheels. In order to know what is operating expense, just do one thing. Assume that you freeze all actions for 1 week. Do you still have to pay salaries to the managers? Yes. Do you still have to pay salaries to the workers? Do you still have to pay interest to the bank? All of it is operating expense. Everything that you have to still pay. But you freeze all operations, you don't buy more, you don't have to pay more to the vendor. Is it understood? Yes or no? And then there is the investment. How much money is tied up inside the company? The investment is inventory, the investment is the machines, the investment is the building, the land, all the money tied up in the company. If you are for-profit organization, that's the only time where the goal units, which is the throughput, is the same units as operating expense. Both of them are dollars. If you're in an army, for example, the operating expense is how dollars still. The throughput is not dollars, it's defense. Okay? So only for-profit organization, we can make some shortcuts and we can talk about net profit. What is net profit? Net profit is nothing but throughput minus operating expense. You cannot talk about net profit when you're dealing with a hospital, army, high school, because then you are subtracting apples from bananas, what you get. Fruit salad. Which means, in for-profit, we can talk about net profit. All other for-purpose organization, we cannot talk about net profit. So what? We have to still talk about throughput, and we have to still talk about operating expense. Also, in for profit, we can talk about something else that everybody is very happy to talk about, which is return on asset or return on investment, which is nothing but throughput minus operating expense, the net profit divided by the investment. This is return on investment. Is it understood? Yes or no? You can play with ratios as much as you want. For example, throughput divided by operating expense, which you can do for non-profit and for profit the same way. This is what is called productivity. This is official definition of productivity. If you are looking on throughput divided by investment, this is investment turns. If you take just a portion of the inventory, you'll get inventory turns. Is it understood? Yes or no? I'm not into this game, so for me, I'm looking on throughput, investment, operating expense. You can play with whatever ratio you want. Anyhow, we need all these three. Is it understood? Yes or no? Fine. Now, coming back to the chain. We have to make sure that cost will be controlled. We have to make sure that throughput will be protected. We lose one of them, we are bankrupt. Is it understood? Yes or no? Unfortunately, each one of them implies a totally different philosophy to manage the whole company. Let me show you what I mean. Remember, we've used the analogy. It's time to use the analogy. What is equivalent to cost in our physical chain? For that, we have to understand what is the essence of costs. I believe that the essence of cost is cost obey the additive rule. Additive rule means 1 + 1 is equal to. No, I haven't lost my marbles. Many times in reality, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. How much is one man with one woman? A whole family with 7 children. Look around you. 1 + 1 is very rarely 2. How much a boy has 1 apple? We give him another apple. How many apples the boy has? None. He ate them. I'm talking about reality. Yes, it looks funny. Most entities do not obey the additive rule. In a minute you'll see another example, but now let's look on the cost. What's the meaning of it? Maybe the best way to do it, to demonstrate it, is let's assume that you are the boss. You are in charge of the whole chain, of the whole company. I'm working for you. I'm in charge just on one link. And you came to me and you said, improve! And I say, aye, sir. Very obedient. Just in this story. And 3 months later, I will come to you and say that with a lot of effort and some money and my managerial ability, I've succeeded to really improve. I've reduced the weight of my link by 300 grams. First, you're not so impressed because, let's face it, you don't care about my link, you care about the chain. What is the weight? What is the impact on the weight of the whole chain? If you know that I've reduced the weight of my link by 300 grams, what do you know happened to the weight of the whole chain? Went down by 300 grams. In other words, what you've done is you assume the additive rule. What is the weight of the whole chain? It's the weight of one link plus the weight of the second link plus the weight of the third link. And if I don't forget any link, what I'm getting is the weight of the whole chain. And that's why if I reduce the weight of one link, by that I've reduced the weight of the whole chain. Is it understood? Yes or no? This is etched in people's mind. And because of it, what is the impression? The impression is that the local impact is not just an indicator, it is the impact on the whole company. Which means, what is the mode of operation? Let's induce improvement everywhere, local improvements. Well, not like in weight, many times in reality, I want to know what is a local improvement, and it's not so easy to find what's a local improvement. How can I quantify the local improvement? How can I quantify the local improvement? What do we do today to quantify the local improvement? The local improvement on the level of a profit center, a product, an operation, a department. What do we do? You all know now. What do we do in order to quantify the local improvement? We allocate the cost.